Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all. My name is Todd Robinson, and I'm the Assistant Secretary of State for the Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs. I'm so pleased to open this virtual ceremony to honor the winners of the Department of State's 2021 Anti-Corruption Champions Awards. To those of you joining us from around the world, welcome. It's a privilege to be with you all today to mark the importance of the global community's fight against corruption. I'd like to recognize Undersecretary for Civilian Security, Democracy, and Human Rights, Azra Zaya, who has been traveling and working nonstop to support the department's anti-corruption efforts. While I know the Secretary wanted to join us today, unfortunately, he had a conflict. So we'll hear a short recorded message from him in a few minutes. But first, Undersecretary Zaya will start us off this morning with some important remarks.
Thank you so much, Assistant Secretary Robinson, and to all of our deserving honorees. I'm delighted to be here today to take part in this ceremony on the eve of both International Anti-Corruption Day and the Summit for Democracy. As we know all too well, corruption is a serious crime that undermines social and economic development in all societies. No country, region, or community is immune to it. Every society, community, and individual will benefit from standing firmly against corruption. Corruption eats away at the foundations of democratic societies. It makes governments less effective, wastes public resources, and exacerbates inequalities in access to services, making it harder for families to provide for loved ones. It erodes the trust of citizens in public institutions and puts an anchor around the neck of developing countries. It's estimated that billions of dollars are lost to corruption annually. In developing countries, funds lost to corruption are estimated at 10 times the amount of official development assistance. Imagine how those stolen funds could benefit our world. As we face ever-expanding global challenges, we need to harness our resources to effectively meet them. We can't afford to indulge or ignore corruption, least of all from our global leaders. Fighting corruption is a long-standing priority of the US government and a security and foreign policy priority. The State Department counters corruption through country-to-country diplomacy, supporting international standards and their implementation, building and strengthening government institutions, using visa restrictions and sanctions to hold corrupt officials accountable, and supporting journalists and non-governmental actors who promote transparency and advocate for justice for corrupt actors. The State Department's Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs works to keep Americans safe by countering crime, illegal drugs, and instability abroad. The Bureau is working around the world and around the clock to build the capacity of foreign justice sector partners to investigate and prosecute complex corruption cases. Recognizing the fight against corruption can't be won by governments alone, the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor is strengthening the ability of civil society and media to reveal corruption, to foster public demand for change, and address weak governance and poor human rights conditions that cultivate corruption. The State Department publicly designates corrupt foreign officials and their family members as ineligible for entry into the United States. In this year alone, we've publicly designated and denied visas to over 60 corrupt foreign officials and immediate family members, and supported the Department of Treasury in sanctioning 79 individuals and entities in connection with corruption under the Global Magnitsky Program. None of this work would be possible without strong partnerships, as well as the independent work of principled individuals who see this as their fight too. The launch of the Summit for Democracy on International Anti-Corruption Day provides us with a unique opportunity to recognize those working to make their countries better. And today, we celebrate 12 men and women who undertake this perilous effort and champion rule of law, transparency, and accountability. We're honored to work alongside champions like these to defeat corruption. In my tenure as Undersecretary of State for Civilian Security, Democracy, and Human Rights, I've seen firsthand the harm that corruption causes. I've also seen the benefit to neighborhoods, states, countries, and the world when individuals take a stand against corruption in their communities. Though we'll be honoring 12 people today, I also want to recognize the many unsung heroes who were part of this effort. Your work is vital, and we in the United States stand ready to support you however we can. And now I'll turn things back to the Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Assistant Secretary and my dear friend and colleague, Ambassador Todd Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Undersecretary. Now it's my privilege to introduce the remarks from Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
Thank you, Todd, and a warm welcome to everyone joining us today virtually, particularly the families and colleagues of the awardees. Today, we honor 12 remarkable individuals. Often, when speaking of massive, complex challenges like corruption, we lose sight of the fact that our ability to chip away at these issues, make meaningful progress, and actually change people's lives for the better comes down to the work of individuals. People who, through sheer tenacity, creativity, and bravery, show us that even the most daunting problems are not insurmountable. And that's exactly what these champions show us. From day one, President Biden has made clear that one of our top priorities, at home and around the world, is to show that democracy can deliver for our people. And for democracy to deliver, we have to do a better job at fighting the scourge of corruption. Corruption erodes public trust in government. It deepens poverty and inequity, and it stifles opportunity and growth. It undermines law enforcement and rots justice systems. It drains vital resources that could otherwise be spent educating children, treating the sick, expanding access to energy and broadband, or any number of services that improve people's lives. President Biden has, for the first time, designated the fight against corruption as a core U.S. national security interest. The United States is taking unprecedented steps to crack down on illicit financing, to seize and freeze stolen assets, and make it harder for those who steal from people to launder their money through real estate and shell companies. And combating corruption will be a central theme of the Summit for Democracy, which will convene starting tomorrow on International Anti-Corruption Day. The summit is a chance for us to learn from one another about what works best in fighting corruption, where we're falling short, and how we can work better together. Because in our interconnected global system, no individual, movement, government, or country can effectively fight corruption alone. As we go into the summit, there's a lot we can learn from the champions we're celebrating today. First, to fight corruption, we need leaders from every part of our societies to step up. Journalists, prosecutors, activists, business leaders, academics, educators, government officials. Second, as corrupt actors grow increasingly skilled at spreading their illicit activities and networks across borders, anti-corruption champions must do the same, finding partners in every field and part of the world. And we need to systematically fix the weakest links in our interconnected system. That's what Belize's Auditor General, Dorothy Bradley, did when she exposed how smugglers, traffickers, and other criminals were paying bribes to obtain Belizean passports and visas, which they were using to escape accountability. Third, the secret weapon of anti-corruption champions everywhere, and the reason many of this year's awardees have been effective in countering impunity despite the powerful forces arrayed against them, is that they have most people on their side. People have experienced and understand to their core just how harmful and unjust corruption is. A 2017 poll found 1 in 4 people around the world had paid a bribe during the last year, Corruption is estimated to cost up to 5% of global GDP. In the majority of countries, people think corruption is one of the three biggest problems they face. And in the majority of countries, people think governments are doing a bad job tackling corruption. Just look at the broad-based uprisings around the world in recent years. In the Maidan in Ukraine and Tahrir Square in Egypt, the mass movements in Romania, Tunisia, Sudan, Guatemala, you'll find they're driven by a total revulsion at corruption. That's why people in Cyprus responded to calls by Alexandra Adelides to come out into the streets to demand accountability for corrupt officials who had sold passports to high bidders. And it's why people often rally behind anti-corruption champions when they come under attack for their work. That's what happened to Martha Chizuma, the youngest person and first woman to lead Malawi's Anti-Corruption Bureau. She worked hard to root out graft in public projects and electoral systems. She was so good at her job that politicians blocked her from being reappointed. But people from across Malawi came out to demand she stay on, including civil society groups, government officials, and ordinary citizens who believed in her and what she was trying to do. Under pressure, politicians reversed their decision and reappointed Martha. The people we recognize today have been threatened, smeared, harmed for their work. Just a few months ago, Riyad Kobesi, a Lebanese journalist, had his windshield smashed while reporting a story on abuses by security forces. Despite the attacks, Riyad and the other honorees have persisted, and we're grateful to them. To today's honorees, thank you for your inspiring and essential work. The United States is honored to be your partner, now and going forward. And to all, congratulations.
Earlier this year, the department launched the Anti-Corruption Champion Award to celebrate and honor a few of those individuals who bravely fight corruption all over the world. Today, we're pleased to continue this tradition. As the Assistant Secretary for the Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs, I'm privileged to witness nearly every day the positive impact that our criminal justice system programs have on communities abroad in their efforts to ensure that corruption does not pay and that there are consequences for corrupt actors. Whether we're empowering local law enforcement partners in Nigeria, supporting canine units in El Salvador, or funding judicial network and anti-corruption training programs in Europe and Eurasia, the United States and our partners are seeing real results. Equally important are department efforts to build partner capacity to prevent corruption in the first place. Whatever our tools, only by working together can we stop corrupt actors from operating with impunity. And so, on behalf of the Department of State, it is my honor to name 12 anti-corruption champions from across the globe. These courageous individuals have overcome great obstacles to lead and inspire many others in the fight against corruption. Men and women, government officials, and non-governmental activists whose remarkable achievements have promoted development, peace, and security in their communities and countries. Today, the Department of State recognizes the following individuals as anti-corruption champions. Dorothy Bradley, for exposing corrupt practices and illegalities in the sale of Belizean passports and visas, and for bringing to light a scheme to illegitimately bestow Belizean citizenship to foreign nationals. Nikolai Staikov, for his heroic investigative journalism that unveiled high-profile public corruption cases and inspired widespread public demand for good governance and rule of law in Bulgaria. Alexandra Atalides, for her efforts to organize and lead the first significant anti-corruption demonstrations ever to take place in the Republic of Cyprus, inspiring fellow citizens to demand action against corruption. Carlos Giovanni Ruano Pineda, for his service in upholding the integrity of the Guatemalan justice sector for more than 13 years, and for his vocal defense of judicial independence and democratic norms through his leadership of the Guatemalan Association of Integrity for Judges. Gabriela Alejandra Castellanos, for her courage on the front lines in the fight against corruption as Executive Director of the National Anti-Corruption Council, and her commitment to investigating the toughest cases in Honduras. Jamilaya Maricheva, for her innovative use of social media to break the cultural code of accepting and expecting corruption in Kazakhstan's government procurement system. Juris Juris, for his bravery leading the successful prosecution of oligarch and global Magnitsky designee Ivers Lembergs, achieving Latvia's highest profile conviction for corruption-related charges. Riyad Kobayesi, for his integrity, leadership, and courage in confronting corruption in the public sector and exposing bribery and smuggling through his accountability journalism in Lebanon. Martha Chizuma, for her leadership, courage, and impact countering corruption at all levels in procurement and election matters while serving as Director General of the Anti-Corruption Bureau and Ombudsman in Malawi. Denise Namburetti, for displaying exceptional courage in holding government officials accountable for massive fraud and promoting a sovereign wealth fund in Mozambique to responsibly manage future revenues for natural resources. Dr. Topat Yamatnak, for his courage while advancing societal anti-corruption awareness, community policing, procurement reform, government data transparency, and youth engagement in Thailand. And finally, Carlos Paparoni, for his bravery as key investigator and spokesperson against corruption in Venezuela and his efforts to constrict the corruption and money laundering that fund the regime's anti-authoritarian grip. I wish we could gather together in person to celebrate the courageous and inspiring work of these individuals. Each of you has your own story and is deserving of this recognition. As the world commemorates International Anti-Corruption Day, the United States renews its commitment to stand by citizens around the world, calling for transparent, accountable governments. We proudly recognize these champions and many other unsung partners across the world who have taken a stand against corruption. It is because of individuals like these that our collective work towards a safer and more secure world continues. And now we will have the honor to hear from one of the awardees. Please join me in welcoming Dorothy Bradley of Belize.
On this auspicious and august occasion, I am most honored and humbled to accept the Anti-Corruption Champions Award on behalf of all nominees. It is a blessing to be recognized and bestowed with this award from the U.S. Department of State. For me, it is a symbol of hope for persons and institutions committed to change the solid landscape of global corruption. Together, we can move mountains, but it requires moving one pebble at a time. The inconvenient truth is that corruption is a scourge that threatens our world's democracies and the value systems on which they are based. Corruption results in unjust enrichment that benefits its perpetrators. It can occur on both a local and an international scale. Our collective work has demonstrated the need for government agents to work without fear or favor, because it inspires conscientious, courageous champions for justice around the world. It also underscores the need for citizen involvement to successfully combat corruption. I was appointed Auditor General of Belize in September 2011 after holding senior positions within the public service of Belize. As Auditor General, My essential role is to ensure that resources, whether financial or otherwise, are utilized in an efficient and resourceful manner, incorporating the principles of good governance and accountability. Although the timing was not planned, our public efforts to confront corruption in Belize coincided with the call for our country to sign on to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. The convention provides an instrument for effective action and cooperation against transnational organized crime and the streamlining of institutional and legislative frameworks. In addition, the Lima and Mexico Declaration on the Independence of Supreme Audit Institutions enabled the presentation of a draft Auditor General's Act for consideration and approval to Belize's National Assembly. Corruption can be defined as the orchestrated robbery of the poor, which necessitates immediate action in our countries. Intergovernmental cooperation is necessary to combat these egregious acts that occur around the world. Smaller, fragile economies are often the clearest victims of regional and transnational crimes. Corruption essentially deprives nations from realizing their developmental goals in the areas of health, education, and social services. Transparency International Organization and the recent Pandora Papers presents further insight into corruption by countries and the global imbalances of wealth amassed by powerful people spawned across continents. This fact has been tragically manifested globally due to the COVID pandemic. The pandemic has further propelled fragile economies into dire straits and has exposed the fragility and inequalities that already existed in our economies. Recognition provided in this award to all awardees brings credibility to the fight against corruption in our respective countries. It also boosts confidence to the international community because, in general, corruption erodes global trust in governments due to the lack of accountability and transparency. This award as well is significant for my office country and fellow citizens because it establishes the importance of citizen participation, demonstrates credibility to the office and its work, and support of our effort to combat corruption. The journey to a society free from corruption seems impossible at times, but I'm reminded of a quote by an unknown author who said that, in humility, even the world's turning on its axis becomes visible. I am also reminded of a different quote from French footballer N'Golo Kante. He says, "It is good to win awards, but the most important is to win together."
Darcy, thank you so much for speaking so eloquently on behalf of this group. Now we have a brief video to share.
Corruption is a cancer that eats away at a citizen's faith in democracy, diminishes the instinct for innovation and creativity, and most importantly, it denies the people their dignity.
As we close, I'd like to once again to thank our champions, our honored guests, and all of you working to combat corruption around the world. This week, as my colleagues have noted, we will be taking part in President Biden's Leaders Summit for Democracy, in addition to celebrating International Anti-Corruption Day tomorrow. We'd like to invite everyone to follow our social media accounts for more information about our winners today, as well as the latest on the summit and the department's anti-corruption work. Our Twitter and Facebook handles are both @StateINL. We're so grateful you could join us today, and I hope you have the chance to follow other anti-corruption efforts during the summit tomorrow and Friday. Thank you.